Imagine a snowy afternoon in a small Montana town. A Marine veteran steps out of his old pickup truck, his breath turning to mist, and beside him stands a powerful German shepherd with frost on its fur. They walk toward a house that should have been warm and familiar, yet the windows are cracked, the roof is sagging, and the front door hangs crooked, swaying in the cold wind. Inside, a frail elderly woman with silver hair sits in a dim room, wrapped in a worn gray sweater. She lifts her head slowly, her eyes confused, and calls her own son by the wrong name. Behind her, the drawers are pulled open, papers scattered across the dusty floor like someone had torn the past apart. The dog suddenly freezes, ears raised, staring at a broken cabinet. He growls, not loud, but deep and certain, before digging through the debris until his paws uncover a dirt-stained USB drive. Next, picture a flashy new house in town. Bright lights, clean windows, expensive decorations. Inside stands the man responsible, wearing a red and black flannel jacket, smiling confidently as if nothing could touch him. But the truth is about to collide with him. The snow falls, the tension rises, and what begins as a homecoming becomes a battle for truth, family, and faith. If this story catches your heart, please subscribe, comment, and share to support the channel. Thank you for being here. May God bless every viewer watching today. The winter sky over Crescent Ridge in northern Montana was thick with gray clouds, the kind that promised another wave of snow before nightfall. A sharp wind swept across the landscape, rattling the bare branches that lined the old county road. The cold was unforgiving, biting at exposed skin and creeping into the bones of anyone caught outside too long. The town below lay quiet, almost solemn, as if bracing itself against the weight of the season. It was into this harsh stillness that Ethan Miller returned home after years away. Ethan, a 36-year-old former U.S. Marine, sat tall behind the wheel of his borrowed truck as he turned onto the familiar gravel path leading to his childhood home. His body carried the rugged strength of a man shaped by combat. Broad shoulders, defined arms, a square jaw with faint scars that spoke of close-quarter struggles, and tired green eyes that had seen too much. His dark brown hair was kept in a tight military cut, a habit he never managed to break even after returning to civilian life. Though his expression looked calm, an undercurrent of anxiety ran beneath it. He hadn't seen his mother in years, and every mile closer tightened the knot in his chest. Beside him sat Rex, his 5-year-old German shepherd and former military K-9 partner. Rex was a powerful dog, muscular and alert, with thick black and tan fur and sharp amber eyes that scanned every passing tree and shadow. Even in rest, the dog carried a soldier's discipline. His ears shifted at the slightest sound, and his posture remained ready. Loyal not because he was trained to be, but because he chose to be. As the truck rolled to a stop, Ethan's breath caught. The house, once carefully maintained by his mother, looked nothing like the warm home he remembered. Paint peeled from the walls in long, curling strips. The porch sagged under its own weight, and a broken shutter swung loosely with each gust of wind. The yard was overgrown with dead grass, scattered trash, and forgotten objects that didn't belong there. Rex let out a low rumble, sensing Ethan's change in mood. "This can't be right," Ethan whispered. He stepped out into the cold, boots crunching on patches of hardened snow. With every step toward the house, dread settled deeper in his stomach. He pushed open the front door, expecting the familiar creak, but the noise that greeted him was louder, almost pained. The stale air hit him immediately. Dust, old wood, and something else he couldn't place. Inside, the living room was a chaotic mess. Blankets were thrown over the couch, old newspapers littered the floor, and the lamp near the armchair lay cracked and abandoned. The space felt smaller, darker, almost suffocated by neglect. Ethan's chest tightened. His mom had always kept this place spotless, even when her memory began to slip. "Mom?" he called gently. "It's me. I'm home." A soft shuffling sounded from the kitchen. Then a frail figure appeared in the doorway, Mary Miller. Mary, once a lively woman who loved to hum old country songs while she cooked, now looked fragile and worn. Her thin frame was wrapped in a faded, oversized sweater. Strands of her silver-gray hair were tangled, and her warm brown eyes, usually filled with kindness, seemed clouded with fog and confusion. Her steps were slow, tentative, as though she wasn't fully aware of where she stood. But when she saw Ethan, her face lit up with sudden joy. "Derek, you're back!" she exclaimed. The word struck Ethan like a punch to the chest. "Mom, no," he said softly. "It's me, Ethan." Mary blinked rapidly, as if trying to process his words. Then she gave a small, nervous laugh, the kind people use to cover confusion. Yes, Ethan, of course." But her tone wavered. She wasn't sure. Rex approached her gently, lowering his head and nudging her hand with his nose. Mary smiled instantly, petting him clumsily. "There you are," she whispered. "Such a good dog. Derek told me you two would come." Ethan stiffened. "Derek told you what?" he asked carefully. Mary looked around the room as though searching for the answer. Her memory flickered, jumping from one blurry thought to another. "He said he would take care of everything. He said I should sign the papers so he could help. He said it was for my own good." Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Papers? What papers? A chill, not from the cold, ran down his spine. Rex suddenly lifted his head, ears pricking toward the hallway. His nose twitched, catching scents hidden from human senses. Without hesitation, he trotted forward, tail rigid as he followed an invisible trail. Ethan followed, weaving through the clutter. They reached the small hallway leading to his mother's old office. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the room looked ransacked. The drawers of a wooden filing cabinet were pulled out, their contents spilled across the floor. Birth certificates, tax documents, letters his father had written decades ago. The lock on the cabinet was broken, hanging by a single twisted screw. "Mom?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Has someone been here?" Mary stood in the doorway, wringing her hands. "Derek said he needed to check things. He said he was helping." Rex growled softly, a warning. Ethan crouched beside the dog and noticed subtle signs. A different boot imprint on the dusty floor, fibers disturbed where something heavy had been dragged, and a faint scent. Cologne, unfamiliar, definitely not his mother's. Ethan looked back at Mary. "Mom, what did you sign?" She frowned, confused and frightened. "He said it was for the house, to help me. He said he loved us like family." The betrayal hit Ethan with full force. Derek, his childhood friend, someone he trusted enough to protect his mother, had clearly taken advantage of her fading memory. Ethan closed his eyes, taking a slow breath, the way he had been trained to do under fire. "It's okay, Mom," he said softly. "I'm here now. I'll take care of everything." Rex pressed close to him, steady and protective. And in that broken room, surrounded by the echoes of what once was, Ethan made a silent promise. He would uncover the truth. He would make Derek pay, and he would restore the dignity his mother had been robbed of. The next morning, The winter sun rose weakly over Crescent Ridge, its pale light struggling to cut through the thick clouds drifting low across the mountains. The air was colder than the day before, sharp enough to sting Ethan's cheeks as he stepped outside with Rex at his side. Snow crunched under his boots, brittle and loud in the otherwise silent neighborhood. He took a slow breath, letting the cold steady him. Anger still simmered inside, but anger clouded judgment, and Ethan Miller had spent too many years learning control to abandon it now. He knew he needed answers, and the best place to start was with the neighbors who had watched his mother's life unfold while he was deployed. The first house on the left belonged to Sarah Thompson, a woman known throughout the road for her keen eye and kind heart. Ethan approached the porch and knocked gently, Rex sitting attentively at his heel. Moments later, Sarah opened the door. She was a tall woman in her mid-50s with a slender frame and long ash-blonde hair loosely tied behind her back. Her hazel eyes softened when she saw Ethan, though grief and worry lived permanently around their edges, a lingering mark left by the tragic car accident that had taken her husband years earlier. Folks said Sarah had never been the same afterward. She had become more observant, protective, and cautious about the people around her. "Ethan," she breathed, "I hoped you'd come by. I'm glad you're back, though I know it's not under the best circumstances." Ethan gave a tight nod. "I need to understand what happened while I was gone." She stepped aside. "Then you'd better come in." The warmth of Sarah's modest living room was a stark contrast to the cold outside. A kettle whistled softly on the stove, filling the space with the scent of cinnamon and tea. She motioned for Ethan to sit at her small wooden table. Rex lay beside him, watchful as ever. Sarah clasped her hands, her voice lowering as if the walls themselves might be listening. "Your mother tried to hide how bad things were. She's a proud woman. But Derek, he made everything worse." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Tell me." "He started coming by a few years back," she explained. "At first it seemed harmless, bringing groceries, fixing things, and helping your mom get to appointments. But after a while, he acted like he owned the place. He talked down to everyone. He even told some neighbors to stop checking on Mary." Ethan's stomach twisted. "He lived in the house?" "For months," Sarah confirmed. "He told us you'd given him permission. But every time I talked to Mary, she seemed confused, scared even, like she wasn't sure what was real anymore." Ethan felt Rex nudge his leg, grounding him before his temper could rise. Sarah hesitated before leaning in slightly. "Ethan, I think he manipulated her. Guilt, pressure, confusion, he used all of it." Ethan swallowed hard. "Thank you, Sarah. This helps more than you know." Leaving her house left his heart heavier than before, but it also confirmed what he feared. Derek hadn't just taken advantage. He had systematically isolated and controlled his mother. Back at the house, Ethan went straight to Mary's bedroom. The cold light filtering through cracked blinds revealed the room clearly now. Determined, he searched beneath piles of blankets, through drawers, and behind old picture frames, until his fingers brushed against a folder tucked beneath the mattress. He pulled it out. Inside were multiple documents: property transfers, financial authorizations, and legal forms. His mother's signature wavered across every page, shaky, uneven, broken in ways that clearly signaled confusion rather than consent. "Oh, Mom," Ethan whispered. Rex paced near the doorway, ears twitching, sensing Ethan's distress. Then suddenly the dog stopped, nose angled toward the back door. Without warning, he trotted outside. Ethan followed. Behind the house lay a barren patch of hardened ground and frozen dirt. Rex sniffed intently around an old tire, then began digging fast, kicking up clumps of earth and snow. Ethan knelt beside him and brushed the soil away until something small and metallic caught the light. A USB drive. His pulse quickened. Inside the house, he wiped it clean and plugged it into his old laptop. It whirred slowly to life, the old fan rattling. Then the screen flickered, and folder names appeared. He clicked the first audio file. Derek's voice filled the room instantly. "Mary, you don't need to think so hard. Just trust me. Ethan would want you to do this. He's not coming back anytime soon." Ethan's grip tightened on the laptop. Another recording, this one worse. "Just sign here. I'll take care of everything. You don't want to bother Ethan with these things, do you?" A sickening chill spread through Ethan. The manipulation, the condescension, the careful exploitation of a woman losing pieces of her memory. Rex rested his head on Ethan's knee, as if reminding him not to drown in rage. Ethan inhaled slowly, steady and controlled. "We'll get him," he murmured. "But we'll do it the right way." The Marine in him refused to act recklessly. Justice wasn't revenge. Justice required patience, discipline, evidence. And evidence was something he now had. With the USB, the documents, and the neighbors' accounts, Ethan's resolve hardened. Derek had pretended to be a friend, a brother, but he was nothing more than a predator hiding behind familiarity. Ethan looked at Rex, who stared back with unwavering loyalty. "Tomorrow," Ethan whispered, "we start putting everything together." And the long road toward justice began. The next afternoon, the sky over Crescent Ridge remained heavy and dim, as if the sun itself hesitated to shine on what Ethan was about to uncover. A thin sheet of frost clung to the streets as he and Rex walked toward the truck, preparing to drive into town. The moment Ethan closed the door, Rex lifted his head, ears pricked forward, alert, focused. The German shepherd sensed the tension running through Ethan like a taut wire. Today, they were going to confront the man who had betrayed their trust. Derek Collins lived in the heart of the town now. Far from the rural road Ethan's mother remained trapped on. Ethan had looked up the new address through local records that morning. The house stood out immediately. Fresh paint, new windows, a manicured yard. Everything about it screamed money, or more specifically, money that did not belong to Derek. Ethan parked a distance away, not wanting to announce his arrival too soon. As he and Rex approached the front door, the sound of laughter and a television echoed faintly inside. Ethan knocked firmly. Moments later, the door swung open. Derek appeared, leaning casually against the frame. He was a man of 38 with a tall, athletic build, sandy blonde hair styled neatly, and a trimmed beard that framed his sharp jawline. His blue eyes, once bright with friendly mischief when they were kids, now held a cold, defensive glare. He wore an expensive flannel jacket over a fitted shirt, clothes that didn't match the income he used to struggle with. His smile faded the moment he saw Ethan. "What the hell do you want?" Derek snapped. Ethan kept his shoulders steady. "We need to talk." Derek scoffed. "About what? Your crazy mother? She barely knows her own name." Rex growled softly, stepping in front of Ethan. Derek flinched and raised his hands slightly. "Keep that monster away from me." "He's doing his job," Ethan replied calmly. Derek's facade cracked for a moment, irritation slipping through. "Look, whatever lies the neighbors are spreading, it isn't my problem. I helped your mother. I gave her time. She signed the papers willingly, Ethan. I saw the signatures, Ethan said. You took advantage of her condition. And you think you can prove that? Derek barked, voice rising. You walk into my house and accuse me? You're out of your damn mind. Ethan studied him, noting the twitch at the corner of Derek's eye, the subtle tremble in his hands, signs of someone caught, afraid, desperate to remain in control. But Ethan stepped back. We're not finished, Derek sneered. Yeah, we are. Stay away from me, Ethan, or you'll regret it. Ethan turned without another word. Rex stayed locked onto Derek until Ethan gave a subtle command, guiding him back toward the truck. They drove off, but Ethan could feel anger boiling beneath his skin. Still, discipline demanded patience. Halfway back to the house, Ethan noticed the headlights behind him. A dark sedan. Too close. Too deliberate. Rex noticed it too. His ears flattened slightly, tail stiff, body angled toward the rear window. Ethan made 2 slow turns. The sedan followed both. Damn it! He drove toward an open stretch of road. When the sedan briefly pulled closer, Ethan's heart rate jumped. But then, just as suddenly, the car veered off onto another street and disappeared into the foggy distance. That wasn't random. That was a warning. When they reached home, Rex immediately leapt out of the truck, nose to the ground. He trotted around the yard before stopping near the bushes beside the driveway. His tail lowered, and he began digging urgently. Ethan knelt beside him, just as Rex tugged something free. A torn scrap of dark fabric, a piece of someone's jacket. Ethan held it, examining the fibers, sturdy material, like something from a heavy winter coat. A faint scent of cologne lingered on it. He stored it in a plastic bag, another piece of evidence in a growing list. Inside the house, Ethan found his mother sitting in her rocking chair, hands trembling. She looked pale, frightened. When he knelt beside her, she clutched his arm. Ethan, don't tell him I said anything, she whispered shakily. Derek said I shouldn't talk. Her whole body trembled as she spoke, as if repeating the warning triggered another wave of fear. Ethan gently took her hands. Mom, you're safe, he assured her. Rex and I are here now. But inside, Ethan's mind spun rapidly. Derek warning his mother, a car tailing him, his house ransacked. This wasn't a simple theft of property. This was desperation. Someone covering something bigger. Financial distress, illegal dealings, money laundering. The possibilities darkened with every piece of evidence uncovered. Ethan sat beside his mother until she calmed, Rex resting his head gently on her knee. When she finally fell asleep, Ethan stepped outside, the cold night air hitting him like a slap. He stood on the porch, fists clenched. This was no longer just about stolen assets. Derek was hiding something dangerous. And Ethan knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever Derek was tangled in, he was willing to hurt people to protect it. Ethan stared into the dark yard, feeling Rex take his place at his side. We're not backing down, he murmured. Rex barked once, low and confident. The hunt for the truth had only just begun. The following evening brought a heavier cold over Crescent Ridge, the kind that sank deep into the bones and made every breath feel like frost. Ethan sat at the kitchen table with documents spread out before him, the dim light from a single lamp casting shadows across his tired face. Rex lay nearby, ears twitching at the faint creaks in the old house. They both knew time was running out. Derek was becoming desperate, and desperate men made dangerous choices. Ethan pulled out his phone and scrolled to a familiar number he hadn't dialed in years. Noah Carter. They had served together in the Marines, surviving the same sandstorms, operations, and sleepless nights. Noah had always been the calm one, broad-shouldered, with a heavy, muscular build, short black hair, and deep-set brown eyes that carried the calm intensity of someone who had seen the worst of war and come out wiser. After leaving the military, Noah had joined law enforcement and had gained a reputation for being fair, steady, and extremely difficult to intimidate. His sense of justice came from losing his younger brother to a drug-related incident, an event that hardened him and drove him to help families who'd been taken advantage of. When Noah answered the call, his deep, gravelly voice broke through the tension. "Ethan, been a long time." "I need help," Ethan said. "Then you called the right guy." Half an hour later, Noah arrived at the house, his tall figure filling the doorway. He wore his sheriff's jacket, snow dusting his shoulders. Rex greeted him with cautious curiosity, sniffing before relaxing. Rex could always sense good men. Inside, Ethan handed Noah the property transfer papers. Noah studied the signatures, his brows furrowing with each page. "These aren't consistent," he noted. "Her handwriting jumps, stroke direction changes, pressure's uneven. If I run this through verification software, I can tell you how much is forged." "Please," Ethan said quietly. Noah nodded. "Give me a few hours." Night settled heavily around the house as Ethan waited. When Noah returned, the look on his face said everything. 70% mismatch, Noah reported. "This isn't just unethical, it's criminal fraud. If we add the evidence you've already got, Ethan, we can build a solid case." A wave of grim relief washed over Ethan. Now, they had a path forward. Later that night, Ethan and Rex began the next phase: surveillance. They parked far from Derek's home and followed him discreetly from a distance, the truck humming quietly through the cold streets. Derek moved differently now, faster, twitchier, constantly checking his surroundings. Guilt and fear clung to him like a second skin. Hours passed before Derek drove toward the outskirts of town. Rex perked up, nose lifted toward the cracked window. Ethan felt a change in the air as well, a shift in tension, expectation. Derek stopped in front of a rusty metal warehouse, tucked behind a row of struggling pine trees. Its paint peeled in sheets, and snow piled in uneven mounds along its base. A single dim light above the door flickered weakly. Ethan and Rex crept around the side of the building. Rex sniffed the wind, catching something sharp: ink, chemicals, and the faint metallic scent of fresh cash. Inside, Ethan could hear Derek moving. Papers rustled, boxes shifted. He peeked through a small broken window and saw Derek stacking binders and ledgers filled with handwritten entries. Transactions, withdrawals, unexplained transfers, a gold mine of evidence. But more importantly, Derek had left one window slightly cracked for ventilation. It was just enough space for Ethan to record unobstructed video. He pulled out his phone, hit record, and captured everything. Derek counting stacks of cash, sorting through fake documents, muttering curses under his breath. Rex stayed beside him, tail still, body rigid. Once Ethan had enough footage, they slipped away unseen. Hours later, near midnight, Ethan returned to Derek's house. He stood tall at the doorway, Rex by his side, the cold wind sweeping between them. Derek opened the door with agitation already on his face. "You again?" Ethan held up the video on his screen. "It's over, Derek." Derek's face drained of color. His eyes darted wildly behind Ethan, as if searching for a way out, a moment to run. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Ethan asked calmly. Rex stepped forward, teeth bared slightly, not barking, not lunging, just enough to show there would be no escape. Derek snapped. He tried to bolt past Ethan, but Rex lunged with trained precision, blocking the path and forcing Derek back against the wall. "Don't make this worse," Ethan warned. Derek froze, his breath ragged, fear overtaking whatever composure he once had. Ethan stepped back and dialed Noah. "It's time." Within 20 minutes, patrol cars pulled up, lights flashing silently in deference to the late hour. Derek was handcuffed and placed into the back of a cruiser, shouting desperate excuses that no one believed. Ethan watched with a mix of sorrow and resolve. The man he once called brother had become a stranger. Beside him, Rex remained still, steady, loyal, unshakable. Tomorrow would be the final confrontation. But tonight, the truth had finally surfaced. The morning after Derek's arrest arrived with an unusual stillness over Crescent Ridge. A cold mist lingered across the fields, wrapping the town in a quiet gray blanket. Ethan awoke early, his muscles sore but his mind sharp, aware that today would bring closure to months, years of uncertainty. Rex stood by the door, tail gently wagging, sensing that something important was unfolding. Ethan stepped outside as patrol vehicles rolled up the gravel road toward Derek's warehouse. Noah Carter emerged from the lead car, wearing his sheriff's jacket and a solemn expression that suited the early hour. Snowflakes dusted his short black hair and broad shoulders. "Morning," Noah said, his deep voice steady. "We're ready." Ethan nodded. "Let's finish this." A team of officers followed Noah. Among them was Officer Linda Hayes, a woman in her early 40s with a compact athletic build, sharp cheekbones, and auburn hair tied tightly at the back. She had a stern, no-nonsense expression, shaped by 15 years of working narcotics and fraud cases. Her reputation was one of precision. She rarely smiled, rarely hesitated, and she had a deep dislike for manipulators like Derek after losing her own parents to a scam when she was a teenager. She gave Ethan a respectful nod as she passed. Inside the warehouse, officers worked quickly. They photographed stacks of cash, seized forged documents, cataloged ledgers filled with incriminating numbers, and collected devices Derek had tried and failed to hide. Rex watched every movement with alert eyes, sitting beside Ethan like a soldier awaiting orders. Shortly after, Derek was brought in for final confirmation of the evidence chain. His once confident posture was gone. His sandy blonde hair was disheveled, and his blue eyes darted anxiously. The trimmed beard that once added charm now emphasized the strain on his face. Gloves and handcuffs made his gestures small, weak. Derek stopped when he noticed Ethan standing near Noah. "You ruined everything," Derek hissed, voice trembling with anger and fear. Ethan didn't flinch. "You did that yourself." Officer Hayes stepped forward. "Derek Collins, you are formally charged with identity fraud, exploitation of a vulnerable adult, property theft, and financial misconduct." Her tone was calm but razor sharp. "You'll be transferred to county jail pending trial." Derek's mouth opened as if to protest, but the strength faded from him entirely. He lowered his head, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Ethan felt the weight lifting. Justice was finally catching up. By the afternoon, Ethan was at the courthouse signing recovery documents. Pages once used to steal from his family were now instruments of restitution. It felt surreal. With Noah's help, and based on the evidence Ethan had gathered, The judge issued full return of all assets misappropriated by Derek, including the ancestral family home Ethan had believed was lost forever. When Ethan returned to the property with Rex, the winter sun had broken through the clouds, casting soft gold light across the worn-down house. It still looked tired, beaten, weathered by years of neglect, but for the first time, Ethan saw possibility instead of decay. He spent the next weeks rebuilding it. Ethan tore away rotted boards, repaired the sagging porch, replaced broken windows, and patched the leaking roof. His hands, trained for combat and discipline, adapted easily to hammers, saws, and tools. Each swing of the hammer was cathartic, restoring both the house and Ethan's own peace. Rex never left his side. The German Shepherd dug holes for new posts, dragged lightweight planks across the yard in his jaws, and patrolled the perimeter during every break, helping, as Mary often happily described. Rex's fur sparkled in the winter sun as he trotted proudly from one task to another, the picture of loyalty. Inside the house, Mary began to settle again. Though her memory remained fragile, the constant fear and confusion faded. She sat by the newly repaired window most days, knitting slowly while watching Ethan and Rex work. The warmth of a safe environment softened her worries. One afternoon, Ethan sat beside her with 2 cups of tea. Mary glanced at him, her brown eyes momentarily clear. "You always worked so hard," she murmured. "So did you, Mom," Ethan replied, squeezing her hand gently. A soft smile spread across her face. "You're a good man, Ethan. You always were." Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. For years he had carried guilt for leaving her alone while serving the country, even though he knew he had no choice. Now, being here, protecting her, rebuilding her world, felt like his true mission. Later that evening, after Mary had gone to bed, Ethan stepped onto the porch. The repaired boards held firm beneath his weight. Snow drifted gently across the yard. Rex sat beside him, tail thumping lightly. Ethan rested a hand on Rex's head. "Funny," he said quietly. "There are people you grow up with, people you think are brothers, but hard times show you who they really are." Rex looked up at him with loyal amber eyes. "And who stands with you anyway?" Ethan exhaled deeply, the cold air turning into steam. "I'm lucky I still have you, buddy." Rex leaned into him, a silent oath of loyalty stronger than any spoken promise. Justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about rebuilding what mattered: family, safety, trust, and with Rex by his side, Ethan knew the healing had truly begun. In the end, Ethan realized something many of us forget in the rush of daily life. Miracles don't always arrive with thunder, angels, or bright lights. Sometimes, a miracle is simply the strength to stand up after being betrayed, the courage to protect the ones we love, or the loyalty of a good dog who never leaves our side. And maybe, just maybe, God works through the small things we overlook every day. A neighbor who cares, a friend who returns at the right time, a loyal companion placed in our lives for a purpose, or the quiet voice in our hearts that tells us to keep going when everything feels lost. Ethan found justice, family, and healing. But above all, he found proof that God sends help in many forms. Sometimes through people, sometimes through circumstances, and sometimes through the faithful eyes of a German shepherd named Rex. As you finish watching this story, I pray that God blesses you and your family, gives you strength in your struggles, and surrounds you with loyal hearts just like Ethan had. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from, share this video to spread hope. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another inspiring story, and may God's grace follow you today and every day. God bless you. God bless your home. And may His miracles find you when you need them most.